This video, it's not going to be a fun one. So as far as the video goes today, it wasn't really what I had expected last week I would actually be putting up. The reason why is I had hopes that I'd be posting an awesome muzzleloader hunt. And let me just explain that a little bit. Our muzzleloader season opened here in Pennsylvania. It runs Saturday to Saturday, 1 week in October. And you can harvest antlerless deer or use antlerless tags with that muzzleloader tag. And that's probably my favorite thing to hunt. I absolutely love shooting the muzzleloader. I love it more than archery, love it more than my old rifle. It's just awesome. There's something about it. The smoke, load, and everything. And I've been shooting it for a few years now, and every year I go, I usually fill out a few doe tags. 2 tags, 3 tags seems to be kind of my average, and I was pretty excited this year going in because it's my first year self-filming my hunts. You know, I'm thinking I'm going to be able to post some pretty cool action and, have a great video. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. So there was a lot of weird stuff leading up to the season. We got unusually warm. I mean, one of the days I was out, it was like 79, almost 80. Had a full moon phase, so deer were moving at nighttime, so they weren't nearly as active during the day. But I did end up getting a shot at one. And what happened was I wounded it. But just to kind of jump into that a little bit, let me tell you about how my day started. Okay, so there's a spot where I had a summit climber set, and it's a spot where I've been seeing deer moving about. I've been out archery hunting, but none of them close the gap on archery. So in my mind, I'm thinking, hey, perfect. Get out with my muzzleloader, be a perfect spot to fill in a tag or two just from that one tree stand, right? So I get out there before sunup. I'm sitting. Sunup comes. I'm usually seeing deer move there between like 8, 9 a.m. There's nothing moving. I mean, nothing. As far as the eye can see, it's dead. So I ended up waiting until about 9:30, and I was like, I'm just gonna call it. I'm gonna get down, and I'm gonna go to this other spot where I know they go to bed. See if maybe I can push something out or maybe get a shot at something. So I get out of the stand, climb down, start walking, and as I started walking, I should mention it's kind of down in this big hollow, and there's just like this trail running along a fence line. I was walking on that fence line. Now at one point there's this kind of gradual grading where it goes up, and there's like a little hill. It's probably 60 yards from bottom to bottom on either side of the hill, right? So as I'm walking in, I see a doe start popping up too. I see ears, face. She sees me. I drop down, and I drop down, and I'm kneeling, and I got my, elbow on my knee, and I got that scope right on her, and I'm waiting, and I'm like, if that thing comes closer, I can get a head-on shot where the vitals are at, or if I can get a shot just at the vitals, if it turns sideways, great, I'm taking it. Well, she, keeps creeping and, looking and trying to figure out what I was. She obviously didn't smell me. But she keeps coming. She comes right up the hill, and I'm right there, right? I got the shot, pulled the hammer back on my muzzleloader, and right as I pulled that back, and I took my breath out, getting ready to shoot, she turns. And right as she turns, I pull that trigger. Now, if you shoot muzzleloaders, there's a huge cloud of smoke. So I see that, and I'm trying to look, and I just see the deer flopping, down the other side of the hill. It clearly fell over, right? I'm sitting there just collecting myself for a second, not really hearing any noise over there. I went ahead and, loaded another load. And, in my mind, I'm already celebrating, right? Because there's a deer on the other side of that hill just dead. I gave it a few minutes, and then I stood up and started walking over this little hill. I get over there, and there's dirt kicked up and leaves kicked up everywhere. There's no deer. So I'm like, okay. There's blood, a lot of blood. So I started walking. I should mention at this part too, I was wearing a GoPro on my head. I was going to actually upload that video, but again, I shot this thing at probably 45, 50 yards, so the GoPro, it's not great for that sort of footage, and it's really hard to see. I mean, I could watch the video and I knew what was going on because I was there in real time and saw it all happen, but I just decided not to post the video because it'd be zoomed in and weird, and it just wouldn't, it's hard to kind of convey what happened. But anyway, so I see this all happen, and I get up there, and you know, leaves are kicked up, blood's everywhere, dirt's kicked up, and in this hollow I'm in, up at the top, this fence line goes and it cuts in and goes up. Up at the top where that fence line is, I see that doe skyline limping off into this field. So at this point, I'm like, okay, well, you know, and I'm looking at the blood. I'm like, that has to be a lethal hit. I'm going to give it some time. So I back out. You know, I ended up leaving, changing clothes, because I was wearing a bunch of, you know, kind of heavyweight stuff because it was like 30 something. And again, the temp dropped. It went from that to like 76 or something that day. Get changed, eat, come back. By this point, it's like 2 o'clock, 2:30, and I get back on the trail because I can see blood dripping, going across this field into this wooded area where there's a lot of like young growth, so a lot of real short stuff. There's a lot of cover. Deer go in there all the time. In fact, I've recovered 2 or 3 deer I've shot in the same property that run there right after they get nailed with an arrow. But the blood trail stops about halfway through the field. It's just eventually less blood, and then eventually I couldn't find any blood, but I could see the direction it was going. So I was like, okay. And I really started thinking about, I'm like, you know, is that thing really alive? Because everything to this point that I'd ever shot with that muzzleloader shooting, you know, 300 grain, 50 cal power belt arrow light, I mean, it's killed everything it's hit, right? So I'm kind of replaying it in my mind. I did pull out the SD card on the GoPro and I'm watching it. And, you know, again, it's hard to see what's happening, but I see the same thing. It gets hit clearly and flops around. So I'm like, you know, it's dead. It's got to be dead. As soon as I got into the woods, it's a real small area before there's a fence line in the neighboring property. This thing stands up. I'm looking at the deer and it's just running, limping, jumps a 5.5 foot fence and just takes off out of my life. I would have shot that way, but there's several houses on the other side of that fence, so I didn't obviously want to do that. And it's all downhill. But safe to say the deer's not going to die. I would be very shocked if that thing was mortally wounded. What I'm thinking maybe happened is right as it turned, because it was all pretty quick, it might have just quartered away more than I thought. I probably blew the shoulder, or at least part of the scapula off. You know, may have blown the bullet out through the brisket, because I definitely don't think it just like grazed it. There was quite a bit of blood, so I think it did hit that, and it was limping pretty good too. So I'm pretty sure the bone there is shattered, or at least part of it. But I think it went through that and, you know, blew out. But it just coincidentally didn't hit any vitals or, you know, any arteries or anything in the process. But you know, I may have even just hit the upper corner and just took a big chunk out. Maybe that's the blood I was seeing. But it sucks, you know, because as a hunter, you never want to wound an animal. You know, you never want to just hurt the animal. It really sucks when you hurt it and it's pretty clear that it's going to die and you just don't recover it. I think that's probably even worse. I mean, there's I guess a part of closure on it, thinking like, okay, it's probably going to be fine. You know, it's got a limp, obviously, but it'll probably be fine. You know, unless another hunter shoots it, good chance that they're tough animals. It's probably going to heal up and live out alive. You know, and it sucks too, because anyone who's been in that sort of situation, you know, like you just kind of base the decisions you're making off of your experience, right? And in my mind, I'm thinking about what I did, and you know, at the time I felt pretty good about the decisions I made. Immediately after, I felt terrible about the decisions I made. You know, and obviously with retrospect, like, if I could have done it differently? Yeah, absolutely. You know, when I was aiming at it, I maybe would have went further back on the vitals, just kind of anticipating it running. That would have stopped it right there. You know, when I went into the woods, you know, and logically, and I'm going to do this for future reference, it's just never been a problem before. You know, in my mind, I was legitimately expecting a, you know, a white belly to be laying up on the ground there. The last thing in the world in my mind was it being fine and being able to run off. But for future reference on that particular part of the property, you know, if I need to go in for any reason, that fence line runs eastern side, western side, you know, instead of going in right at the front of it, northern side of the property, you know, the tree line. If I ever think there's a deer, especially a wounded one in there, I'm going to go in back and push. At least that way I'm pushing any deer that, you know, if that ever happens again, back into the property, right? Because had I done that, you know, who knows? I may even had a good shot at it, because that's the other thing too, is I couldn't shoot at it running away because there's houses there. If I was coming up the other way, I would have absolutely taken a crack at it, because I probably could have got it. But yeah, you know, retrospect, if we all lived in retrospect, we'd, you know, all be way better off than we are now, right? Because you could not make the same mistakes. But, you know, it happens and it sucks. And it certainly wasn't what I was expecting or hoping to be putting out there today. Like I said, I was expecting grip and grins, and, you know, every other time I've done this, every year, I mean, I'm putting deer down, and just wasn't the case. Like I said, I did go out a second day. I always take 2 days off work. That was day one. Day two, it was like 80 degrees. I didn't see a single thing all day. So yeah, and I even went to not just that property. I hit a couple other properties just because I figured, you know, with the activity day before, I might have botched what was happening in there. But yeah, you know, just how it goes sometimes, and it sucks. But we can always learn a little bit from the mistakes we make, and hopefully not make them again. If anything goes good. But if you've got a similar experience, I mean, by all means, feel free to put that in the comments. I'd love to hear about any of your experiences, you know, and just kind of maybe how you bounce back. And if you had an experience like that and had a similar situation but learned from that mistake, share that too. I'd love to hear it, just because, you know, I think as a hunting community, we all grow together and thrive together, and, you know, we all benefit from one another's knowledge. But aside from that, that's about all I got for you today. Like I said, I wish I had grip and grins and meat processing videos, but it's just not the way things went. But I'll be back at it again this weekend. So aside from that, we'll see you out in the woods.